I was sitting in my car engine off staring at the envelope in my hands. It came from Travis County Courthouse. My heart stopped when I read the first line. Megan, the woman I once loved with everything I had, was suing me. The accusations could destroy my career and my name. I remembered the first time I met her when everything felt so beautiful. I never imagined the person who promised to stay by my side forever would become the one trying to ruin me. Before I share what happened next, I would love to know where you are watching from today. Drop your city or country in the comments below. If this story touches you, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel so you do not miss any future stories. Now let me take you back to where it all began, so you can understand how I ended up fighting for my life in that courtroom. My name is Lou, and 6 years ago, my life was heading in a direction I thought would lead to happiness. I had just been promoted to senior developer at a tech company in Austin, Texas. I was 32 years old, financially stable, and ready to find someone to share my life with. That is when I met Megan. It was a Saturday afternoon at a coffee shop in downtown Austin. I was waiting for my order when I noticed her sitting by the window typing on her laptop. She had this warm smile that caught my attention immediately. When she looked up and our eyes met, she did not look away. She smiled wider. I am not usually the type to approach strangers, but something pushed me that day. I walked over and asked if the seat across from her was taken. She said no, and that simple word changed the course of my life. Megan worked in marketing for a local firm. She was charming funny, and had this way of making me feel like I was the most interesting person in the room. We talked for 3 hours that first day. By the time the coffee shop closed, I had her number and a date planned for the following Friday. The first year of dating was like living in a dream. Megan seemed to care about every little detail of my life. She would ask about my projects at work, remember the names of my coworkers, and surprise me with home-cooked dinners after long days. She sent good morning texts and good night calls. I felt seen and valued in a way I had never experienced before. After 12 months together, I decided to propose. I took her to Galveston Beach, the same place we had our first weekend trip as a couple. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. I got down on one knee in the sand, pulled out the ring I had been hiding for weeks, and asked her to marry me. She cried and said yes. Our wedding was small, but meaningful. Just close family and a few friends at a vineyard outside Austin. My brother Derek flew in from Houston. My best friend Nate was my best man. Megan looked beautiful in her white dress, and when she said her vows, I believed every word. I thought I had found my forever, but forever started cracking about 6 months after the wedding. It started with questions. Innocent ones at first, or so I thought. Where are you going? Who will be there? Why did you not text me back for 15 minutes? I told myself it was just her way of caring. She loved me and wanted to know I was safe. That is what I kept repeating in my head every time the questions came. Then came the incident that should have been my first real warning. My team at work went out for lunch to celebrate finishing a major project. There were 8 of us, including Brenda, a female engineer who had been with the company longer than me. Someone took a group photo and posted it on the company social media page. Just a harmless team picture, all of us smiling with our plates of food. That night, Megan was waiting for me when I got home. Her arms were crossed, her jaw tight. "Who is Brenda?" she asked before I even had a chance to put down my bag. I explained that Brenda was just a co-worker. We had been on the same team for 2 years. The lunch was a group celebration, nothing more. Megan did not accept my explanation. She wanted to know why Brenda was sitting next to me in the photo. She accused me of hiding things from her. She demanded to see my text messages with Brenda, even though we barely texted outside of work-related matters. That argument lasted until 2 in the morning. I showed her my phone, let her read every message, and still she was not satisfied. She gave me the silent treatment for a week. After that, everything changed. Megan wanted access to my location at all times. She installed a tracking app on my phone and checked it constantly. She started calling me during meetings, and if I did not answer, she would call again and again until I picked up. I had to report my schedule to her every morning: where I would be, who I would see, what time I expected to be home. If I deviated from the plan by even 10 minutes, I had to explain why. My coworkers started noticing. I would step out of meetings to take her calls. My face tense, my voice low. I saw the pity in their eyes, but I pretended everything was fine. The financial problems came next. Megan had expensive taste: designer handbags, high-end clothing, weekly spa appointments. I did not mind treating her at first, but the spending never stopped. Our joint credit card balance grew every month: $5,000, then 10, then 20. When I suggested we create a budget, Megan exploded. She called me cheap. She said I did not love her enough to provide for her. She accused me of trying to control her. I backed down. I always backed down. Every time I tried to address a problem, it turned into a fight that lasted days. I learned to stay quiet, to let things slide, to tell myself that every marriage had challenges. But deep down, I knew something was very wrong. By our 3rd year of marriage, I barely recognized my own life. Megan had isolated me from almost everyone I cared about. My friends stopped inviting me to things because I always had to cancel at the last minute. Megan would create emergencies or pick fights right before I was supposed to go out, making it impossible for me to leave. Nate was the hardest loss. He had been my best friend since college. We used to watch football together every Sunday, go fishing on long weekends, and grab beers after work. But Megan hated him. She said he was a bad influence, that he was trying to turn me against her, that he was jealous of our marriage. I started sneaking text messages to Nate like I was doing something illegal. Quick exchanges in the bathroom at work or late at night when Megan was asleep. Even those felt dangerous. One evening I got stuck in traffic on my way home from work. An accident on the highway added 30 minutes to my commute. I texted Megan immediately to let her know, but by the time I walked through the door, she was already in a rage. She threw a glass at the wall. It shattered inches from my head. She screamed that I was lying, that there was no traffic, that I had been with someone else. She grabbed my phone and scrolled through everything looking for evidence that did not exist. That night, I slept on the couch. I lay there in the dark, staring at the ceiling, wondering how my life had become this nightmare. I started making a plan. It took me 6 more months to build up the courage to ask for a divorce. I consulted with a lawyer in secret, learned about my options, and prepared myself for what I knew would be an ugly process. When I finally told Megan I wanted to end our marriage, her reaction was exactly what I expected. First came the tears. She sobbed and begged me to reconsider. She promised she would change, that things would be different, that she could not live without me. When the tears did not work, she switched tactics. The threat started. She told me she would ruin me. She said she would tell everyone I abused her. She promised to destroy my career, my reputation, everything I had built. She looked me in the eyes and said I would regret this for the rest of my life. I did not believe her. I thought it was just anger, talking the desperate words of someone who did not want to lose control. The divorce took 6 months. It was brutal. Megan fought over everything from the furniture to the savings account to the car we had bought together. In the end, I gave up half of what I owned just to make it stop. When the judge signed the final papers, I felt like I could breathe for the first time in years. I moved into a small apartment on the east side of Austin. I started rebuilding my life piece by piece. I went back to the gym. I reconnected with old friends. I focused on my work and tried to put the past behind me. 8 months passed. I was finally starting to feel like myself again. Then the letter arrived. I remember the exact moment. I had just gotten home from work, still in my button-down shirt and slacks. I grabbed the mail from my box and flipped through the usual bills and junk. Then I saw it, an official envelope from Travis County Courthouse. My stomach dropped before I even opened it. Megan was suing me. The complaint was 12 pages long. She accused me of harassment after our divorce. She claimed I had sent anonymous emails to her employer, spreading lies about her and causing her to lose her job. She alleged I had been stalking her, showing up at places she frequented, watching her from a distance. She was demanding $250,000 in damages. I read the document 3 times, certain I was misunderstanding something. None of it was true. After our divorce, I had done everything possible to avoid Megan. I blocked her number. I unfollowed her on all social media. I changed my routine specifically so I would never run into her. I had not sent any emails. I had not stalked anyone. I had not done a single thing she was accusing me of. But I also knew that in our legal system, the burden of proof in civil cases is not as high as in criminal ones. If Megan had fabricated evidence, if she had people willing to lie for her, I could lose everything. The case she had built could cost me my job, my savings, and my future. I sat on my couch for hours that night, the papers spread out in front of me, trying to figure out how my life had come to this point. The weeks after receiving that lawsuit were some of the darkest of my life. I hired a lawyer, a guy named Thompson, who came recommended by a coworker. He was expensive, charging $350 an hour, and within the first month, I had already spent $8,000 on legal fees. Thompson reviewed the case and gave me his honest assessment. Megan had documentation, screenshots of emails, statements from supposed witnesses, photos that allegedly showed me near her apartment. He told me the evidence looked concerning. He suggested I consider settling out of court, paying Megan some amount of money to make the whole thing go away. The thought made me sick. Paying her would be admitting guilt for something I never did. It would be letting her win, letting her control my life, even after I thought I had escaped. But fighting seemed impossible too. Word about the lawsuit leaked at my company. I never found out who told, but one morning I was called into a meeting with HR. They had received an anonymous tip about my legal troubles. They wanted to hear my side. I explained everything, but I could see the doubt in their eyes. My manager started treating me differently. I was passed over for a project I had been promised. Coworkers whispered when I walked by. I stopped sleeping. I lost 15 pounds in 6 weeks. Because I could not eat. There were nights when I sat alone in my dark apartment, wondering if Megan had been right. Maybe she would destroy me. Maybe I should have just stayed quiet. Stayed married. Stayed trapped. Nate saved me from that spiral. He showed up at my apartment one evening unannounced, carrying a pizza and a 6-pack. He took one look at me, and his face fell. "You look terrible," he said. I felt terrible. We sat on my couch, and for the first time I told someone the full story. Every detail about the marriage, the divorce, and now this lawsuit. I had been too ashamed to share it before, too embarrassed to admit how badly I had let things get. Nate listened without interrupting. When I finished, he asked a question that changed everything. "Does your brother still practice law, Derek?" My older brother. He had moved to Houston after law school and built a successful practice specializing in family law and civil litigation. I had thought about calling him, but I did not want to drag my family into this mess. I did not want Derek to see how badly I had failed at my marriage and my life. Nate looked at me like I was crazy. "Lou," he said, "your brother is literally an expert in this exact type of case. Why would you not ask for his help?" I did not have a good answer. That night after Nate left, I picked up my phone and called Derek. He answered on the second ring. I could hear the surprise in his voice when he realized it was me. We had not talked much since the divorce. I had been avoiding everyone. I told him everything. The marriage, the abuse, the divorce, the lawsuit, all of it. Derek listened in silence. When I finished, there was a long pause. Then he spoke. "Do not sign anything. Do not talk to anyone about this case. I am flying to Austin this weekend. We are going to go through every piece of evidence together." True to his word, Derek arrived 3 days later. He spent an entire weekend in my apartment papers, spread across my kitchen table, reading every document Megan had submitted. By Sunday evening, he had found what he was looking for. The evidence Megan had provided was weak. The email screenshots had no metadata, no verification that they came from me. The witness statements were vague and contradictory. The photos of me supposedly near her apartment were blurry and could have been anyone. More importantly, Derek noticed inconsistencies in the timeline. Megan claimed I was stalking her on dates when I could prove I was somewhere else entirely. "We have a case," Derek said, "but we need to do this right." Over the next 2 months, Derek helped me build my defense. He guided me through the process of gathering evidence legally and systematically. First, I contacted Megan's former employer. It took some work, but I eventually obtained an official statement confirming the real reason she had been terminated. It had nothing to do with anonymous emails. She had been fired for violating company policy, specifically for falsifying expense reports. Next, I pulled GPS data from my phone and my car for the entire period Megan claimed I was following her. The records showed exactly where I had been every single day. Not once was I anywhere near the locations she had described in her complaint. Finally, we tackled the anonymous emails. Derek hired a digital forensics expert, a former FBI analyst who now worked as a private consultant. The expert examined the email headers and traced the IP addresses. What he found was devastating for Megan. The anonymous emails had been sent from her own devices, her laptop, her phone, her home IP address. She had sent them to herself and blamed me. When Derek showed me the report, I did not know whether to laugh or cry. All this time, all this stress, all this money, and she had manufactured the entire thing. The court date arrived on a Tuesday morning in March. I barely slept the night before. I put on my best suit, the same one I had worn to my wedding years ago. Derek met me at the courthouse steps, calm and confident. Megan was already inside when we entered. She sat at the plaintiff table with her lawyer, a young woman in a gray suit. Megan looked the part of a victim. Her eyes were red, like she had been crying. Her shoulders slumped. She dabbed at her face with a tissue. If I did not know the truth, I might have believed her myself. The hearing began. Megan's lawyer presented their case first. She painted a picture of a woman terrorized by her ex-husband, unable to work, unable to feel safe, living in constant fear. Megan took the stand and testified about the harassment. She described the emails in detail, her voice breaking as she read excerpts aloud. She talked about seeing me outside her apartment, about the anxiety attacks she suffered about losing her job because of my actions. Her performance was convincing. I watched the judge, Patricia Caldwell, a woman known for being fair but tough. Her expression was unreadable. Then it was our turn. Derek stood and approached the bench. He spoke calmly, methodically, laying out our evidence piece by piece. First, he presented the official statement from Megan's former employer, confirming she was fired for expense fraud, not because of any harassment. Second, he submitted my GPS records showing I was never at any of the locations Megan claimed. Third, he introduced the digital forensics report. Derek walked the judge through the technical findings. The anonymous emails came from IP addresses registered to Megan. The timestamps matched periods when she was logged into her personal accounts. The devices used were her laptop and her phone. She fabricated everything Derek said. My client never sent a single email. He never stalked her. He never did anything she accused him of. The plaintiff created false evidence in an attempt to extort money from my client and destroy his reputation. Megan's lawyer objected, demanded time to review the findings, tried to discredit the expert. But the evidence was clear. Judge Caldwell turned to Megan and asked if she had any explanation. Megan panicked. Her composure cracked. She stood up and started shouting that it was a setup, that I had hacked her computer, that we had fabricated the forensics report. Her lawyer tried to calm her down, but Megan kept yelling. The judge banged her gavel. "Order," she commanded. "The plaintiff will sit down and remain silent." Megan collapsed back into her chair, tears streaming down her face. But these were not the tears of a victim. They were the tears of someone who had been caught. Judge Caldwell reviewed the evidence for what felt like an hour. The courtroom was silent except for the sound of her turning pages. Finally, she spoke. "The court finds the plaintiff's claims to be without merit. The evidence presented by the defense clearly demonstrates that the alleged harassment did not occur. Furthermore, the court finds substantial indication that the plaintiff knowingly submitted falsified evidence." She looked directly at Megan. "This lawsuit is dismissed with prejudice. The plaintiff is ordered to pay all legal fees incurred by the defendant in this matter, totaling $45,000. She paused. "Additionally, the court is referring this matter to the district attorney's office for investigation into potential perjury and evidence tampering charges." Megan let out a sound I will never forget. A wail of disbelief and rage. I sat perfectly still. Derek put his hand on my shoulder. It was over. I had won. But I did not feel victorious. I felt empty, exhausted. Relieved, yes, but also profoundly sad. This woman I had once loved, once planned a future with, had tried to destroy me over money and spite. And she had failed, but the damage she had done to both of us could never be fully undone. The days after the verdict were strange. I should have been celebrating, but I could not find the energy. I went home to my quiet apartment and sat in the dark for a long time. The adrenaline that had kept me going for months finally drained away, leaving me hollow. Derek stayed in town for a few extra days to make sure I was okay. We did not talk much about the case. Instead, we did normal brother things. We watched basketball. We grilled steaks on my tiny balcony. We talked about our parents, about his kids, about everything except Megan. Before he left, Derek hugged me and said something I have never forgotten. "You survived, Lou. Now you have to learn how to live again." He was right, but that was easier said than done. The first few weeks were hard. I had nightmares almost every night. I would wake up at 3 a.m, heart racing, certain that something terrible was about to happen. Sometimes I dreamed about the courtroom. Sometimes about Megan showing up at my apartment. Sometimes about losing everything all over again. I knew I needed help, so I found a therapist. A guy named Dr. Warren, who specialized in trauma and relationship abuse. That was the first time I ever thought of what happened to me as abuse. It felt strange to use that word. I was a man. I was bigger than Megan. She never hit me. How could I have been abused? Dr. Warren helped me understand that abuse is not always physical. Emotional manipulation, isolation, financial control, constant surveillance, they are all forms of abuse. What Megan did to me during our marriage was not love. It was not even jealousy. It was a systematic effort to control every aspect of my life. Recognizing that truth was painful, but it was also liberating. I started taking better care of myself. I went back to the gym not to escape my problems, but because I wanted to feel strong again. I taught myself to cook real meals, something Megan had always mocked me for attempting. I read books that had been sitting on my shelf for years. I took weekend trips to state parks, hiking trails, anywhere I could be, alone with my thoughts and the open sky. Work improved too. After the court ruling came out, my company saw the truth. My manager actually apologized to me, which I never expected. The whispers stopped. I got back on track for the promotion I had been promised. 6 months after the trial, I got a call from Derek. The district attorney had charged Megan with perjury and fabricating evidence. She pleaded no contest to avoid a trial. She received 2 years of probation community service and a permanent mark on her record. Her marketing career was finished. No reputable company would hire someone convicted of lying under oath. When Derek told me, I waited to feel something. Satisfaction, maybe. Justice. Vindication. But I felt none of those things. I just felt tired. And a little sad. I realized that revenge, even when it comes through the legal system, does not heal anything. Megan getting punished did not undo the 4 years of marriage I lost. It did not give me back the money I spent on lawyers. It did not erase the sleepless nights or the anxiety that still sometimes crept up on me. The only thing that could heal me was choosing to move forward. About a year after the trial, I went back to that coffee shop in downtown Austin. The same one where I had met Megan 6 years earlier. I had avoided it all that time, but something told me I needed to face it. I ordered a black coffee and sat by the window, the same window where she had been sitting that day. I looked around at the other customers, young couples, students on laptops, friends laughing over pastries. I thought about who I was when I first walked in here. Young, hopeful, naive. I thought I had found love, but what I found was a trap. Now I was older, scarred, but also wiser. I learned things about myself through that experience. I learned that I had a tendency to sacrifice my own needs to avoid conflict. I learned that I ignored red flags because I was afraid of being alone. I learned that I did not trust my own instincts. Those were hard lessons, but they were necessary ones. I also learned what real love is supposed to look like. It does not monitor your location. It does not isolate you from friends. It does not threaten to destroy you when things do not go its way. Real love trusts. Real love supports. Real love lets you be yourself. I finished my coffee and walked out of that shop. The sun was setting over Austin, casting long shadows on the sidewalk. I took a deep breath and felt something I had not felt in years. Peace. Not the absence of pain, but the presence of acceptance. I had been through something terrible, and I had survived. More than survived. I had learned and grown and become someone stronger than the man who walked into that coffee shop 6 years ago. Megan tried to destroy me first, with control, and then with lies. She failed. Not because I was lucky, but because I finally decided to fight back, to stand up for myself, to refuse to be a victim. I share this story not for sympathy, but for anyone out there who might be going through something similar. If someone in your life is trying to control you, isolate you, or tear you down, know that you are not alone. And know that you can get out. It will be hard. It might be the hardest thing you ever do. But on the other side of that struggle is freedom. You are not defined by what happens to you. You are defined by how you choose to respond. So if you are in a difficult relationship right now, I want to ask you this. What would your life look like if you chose yourself? Think about that. Really think about it. And for everyone who watched until the end, I want to hear from you. Have you ever had to fight to protect yourself from someone you once trusted? What helped you get through it? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Your story might help someone else who needs to hear it. If this story meant something to you, please hit that like button. It really helps the channel grow. Subscribe if you have not already, and share this video with someone who might need to hear these words today. Thank you for spending this time with me. I hope you never have to face what I faced, but if you do, I hope you find the strength to fight for yourself. Take care of yourselves. You deserve peace. You deserve respect. You deserve love that builds you up instead of tearing you down. Until next time.